Hey there, Horse Center fans. Matt and I are here on the Kentucky Derby Trail. Matt, we have a nice Kentucky Derby prep unfolding Saturday at Gulfstream Park.
Yeah, Brian, the point values are up on the Derby Trail, and the Fountain of Youth has drawn a really salty field of 11 with a bunch of quality horses that have questions to answer.
Yeah, it's an interesting field for the Fountain of Youth Saturday. We also have a champion filly returning Saturday at Gulfstream Park. Matt, as Jaywalk's back. Also, Mucho is back. Roadster is back, although Roadster has some tough competition in his return race. And we are going to say goodbye to a beloved horse, Matt, in Battle of Midway. All here now on Horse Center. Welcome to another edition of Horse Center, everyone. I am Brian Zipsy, and as always, I have the excellent pleasure of being joined by my co-host to the East Coast. That's Matt Schiffman. How are you today, Matt?
I'm good, Brian. I'm ready to talk Kentucky Derby Trail. I'm ready to go to the Fountain of Youth.
The Fountain of Youth, Matt. It's one of the first big preps of 2019, that's for sure. I think there are a lot of question marks among this field, but there's also a ton of potential talent. First and foremost, I think we have to start with a horse that they put down as the 9-5 morning line favorite, Matt, off only a maiden race. Of course, I'm talking about Hidden Scroll, the son of Hard Spun, is coming off a gigantic maiden win.
Yeah, 9-5, and I think the line maker probably is right on with those odds. But like you said, Brian, here's one with certainly questions to answer. I mean, that maiden victory was the biggest buzz victory so far on the Kentucky Derby Trail when the Bill Mott trainer just crushed that field on a sloppy track. But, you know, on those days, Brian, when the track is sloppy and it's sealed, and every time they run the tractors over and seal the surface down, it gets packed down a little bit more and a little bit more. And those tracks can get really hard and super fast. And Hidden Scroll was super fast on that day. Big speed figure in there. So questions to answer. Was it just the wet track? Now got to go 2 turns, face graded stakes winners, some of whom have super quality. Lots of questions to answer, but you know, it's hard not to like the horse.
Yeah, well, that maiden race, it was a bomb, man. It was he ran off the screen. He won with a 104 buyer. It was big for the Juddmonte Farm homebred, and you know, Bill Mott has had really special horses over the years, and a lot of people think this may be another one. But yeah, 9-5 on the morning line. If you're betting the Fountain of Youth and you like someone, certainly got to take a shot at beating this horse who's only won 1 career race on a wet sealed track. So he could be any kind, Matt, but this is a spot where we're going to see, because not only do we get a dry track, 2 turns, winners, graded stakes horses, there's also a bunch of speed in this race, Matt. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of race he runs as well. Let's just keep going down the list, Matt, because there's a bunch of horses to talk about, and I think they all have question marks. The next on the list on the morning line is Vekoma. Son of Candy Ride was ultra impressive in only 2 starts last year. He's been away 4 months for trainer George Weaver. When last we saw him, he was winning the Nashua over good horses in impressive and fast fashion, Matt.
Yeah, and that's a good point. He was winning the Nashua over good horses. Son of Candy Ride was super impressive. Got on to everybody's Derby top 10s when they first came out, but you know, it's gotten a little bit forgotten as things have been going on. But I know the connections of Vekoma are very, very, very high on this horse. The horse has got speed and can go the distance. Got very good buyer speed figures in those races as 2-year-olds, but it's been a while, Brian. It's been 4 months, and that's valid. That's a valid concern to start the year against this kind of field.
Absolutely. Let's go back again. His maiden race was also a pretty loaded little maiden race, and it was 6 furlongs, and that was really fast, Matt. So 2 strong wins last fall in New York. First time Lasix this time around in the Fountain of Youth. So interesting there. And unlike Hidden Scroll, who we don't know, I fully suspect Hidden Scroll will be a little bit off the pace this time, but Vekoma has done that. He stalked and pounced and won. Matt, I'm gonna go ahead and say it. I think this is a wide open race, but if I had to pick one horse to win the race, I think I would lean to Vekoma, just because I like his style. Candy Ride, you can't go wrong with his breeding, and those 2 races are really, really good. Looking back at what he did as a 2-year-old, he's had a break, not a super long break, but a good break. He's been working, building his works up, getting faster down there in South Florida. I think he's very eligible to run a good race first time out as a 3-year-old. Matt, the next horse with the question mark is another returner, and that's Signalman. Now, Signalman was a much more experienced 2-year-old than just about anybody in this field, and he really got better there at the end of the year. He was a good 3rd in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile behind Game Winner, and then he got the job done in a tough race in the Grade 1 Kentucky Jockey Club. So the son of General Quarters for trainer Kenny McPeak, also making his first start of the year.
Yeah, and going down the road, and overall, I think Signalman is the horse that I like the most in this field. I'm not saying he's my top pick in the Fountain of Youth, but heading to the Kentucky Derby, I like Signalman a lot. He's already got 18 Derby points in the bank, and I think that's just one of a few reasons why we might not expect Kenny McPeak to have this big 3-year-old fully cranked up for his best effort in here. He doesn't really need it as much as some of these other horses in here that either have a couple points or no points in there. And I think that's a pretty typical kind of pattern for McPeak in the way he trains. But it's also worth keeping in mind that Signalman has never finished off the board. So even if I don't expect him to win the race, I expect him to be right there at the end. You talked about the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. That was one super race he ran in there to get 3rd. A difficult trip in a strong field and really noteworthy. And he just got better from that when he handled another big field in the Kentucky Jockey Club. I like Signalman going down the road, but he's not going to be my top pick in here.
Yeah, Matt, I agree with you. A lot of what you says makes sense, because he's the type of horse where you think will build up to a good race, kind of like he did as a 2-year-old. He doesn't have as much speed as most of the other big names in this race. Kenny McPeak, that's kind of his style, to build up a little bit during the spring. The one thing I will say in his favor, though, in this field, with the amount of horses that want to be on or near a pretty brisk pace, I think that does help him. And as you said, he's a consistent runner. I can't throw out Hidden Scroll. I can't throw out Vekoma, probably my top pick. And now I certainly can't throw out Signalman in here either. And the waters get deeper, Matt. Here's another horse with a question mark, because Global Campaign, the son of Curlin for Stanley Huff, has really just took his 2 races by the throat. A maiden win and then an allowance win, both down in South Florida. He took over the race quickly, Matt, and I see comments on both races, which you don't see a lot, wrapped up, and he really was late in both of those wins.
Yeah, Global Campaign is a son of Curlin, and as you mentioned, being trained by veteran Stanley Huff, who knows how to handle good horses. Both of those wins were at Gulfstream Park, so we know that he likes the surface. Tons of potential here. Facing a really good bunch in there. He did have a little bit of a minor foot issue in between races, and that always concerns me, Brian, when I hear about foot issues. Again, folks, I don't know all the details about what was going on, but there's another one with question marks.
Yeah, and for him, the question marks are: can he run with this real, true graded stakes competition? I really like the breeding. I really like the way he won those two races. The first a sprint, the second out a mile and 16th. So I think he's got a big shot. And another thing, he can stalk as well, much like Vekoma. And another thing about global campaign to like here, Matt, I saw the morning line. I was a little surprised. I believe he was at 10-1 on the morning line. I don't know that he'll be that high in actuality when they spring the gates open here in the Fountain Youth. But if he's anywhere near 10-1, Matt, he probably becomes my top play because I think he's got a real shot in here. His last speed rating wasn't that good, but again, he did it wrapped up and a pretty good horse in standard deviation behind him. So global campaign, another big shot in here. Next horse, question mark, Code of Honor, Matt. Really good 2-year-old, missed some time. Came back in the Mucho Macho Man early this year and was kind of a dull fourth that day for trainer Shug McGaughey.
Yeah, he's turned from one of the buzz horses, one of the horses that was up high in a lot of Derby polls, to a horse that's now kind of under the radar, and more than any of the ones that we've mentioned, has got questions that need to be answered. We liked his performance during the summer in the Champagne. He looked really good in that race, and we expected so much in the Mucho Macho Man, and he just came out flat. But Shug McGaughey's been training him a lot harder than he did for that Mucho Macho Man. So it'll be interesting to see what we get. He'll be breaking from the rail, which I don't think is going to be an issue. He's not a forwardly placed kind of runner in there. Johnny V stays on board. He's 6-1 morning line. I don't know. Maybe with all the others we mentioned, that might sound a little low to me, and I wouldn't want him at 6-1 or even lower than that. I'm interested to see what Code of Honor shows us on Saturday.
Yeah, Matt, again, I agree with a lot of what you said there. Code of Honor, he was good winning his maiden first time out and then rallying despite a little trouble for second in the Champagne last year. There were some setbacks that he had along the way. And then we see this a lot with horses, and I guess we talked about it a little bit with Signalman, where they don't have a lot of speed, then they get down to South Florida Gulfstream Park early in their 3-year-old season, and they just do not show their best. Sometimes they jump up second time out and really do improve. Sometimes they need to get out of Gulfstream to really show their best. So we're not sure where Code of Honor is. Son of Young Sire Noble Mission, though, obviously has talent. We saw that at 2. And if he can move forward, I don't think he's going to be 6-1. I think he'll get better odds than 6-1, higher odds on him in here. If he can move forward, maybe he's more apt to make the rally into all this speed than even Signalman, who hasn't this year. So an interesting horse. Definitely not my top pick, but I could see improvement for Code of Honor. Matt, another horse who I think will get a lot of play is this regally bred Son of Tap and War for trainer Mark Hennig. He was 4th in the round. That was only his second start. His last one at Gulfstream Park was pretty darn good.
Yeah, and you mentioned that 4th place finish in the Remsen. We have to keep in mind that was a 4th against some pretty good horses in there. So it wasn't a typical 4th in the Remsen. Oh, that's pretty bad. That Remsen was a better field than we've seen in other years. But yeah, regal breeding, Son of Tappet, strong on the dam side also. And he's got Irad Ortiz up in the saddle, 10-1 on the morning line, which probably is where he's going to be at least. So this is a horse that could get better, and maybe he'll flash some of that in the Fountain of Youth.
Yeah. The breeding suggests he could be any kind. I mean, he's that well bred, and he's been well liked. Won first out, and then he won first out as a 3-year-old after that little disappointment in the Remsen. But that was a tough spot for his second career race at a mile and 1/8. So then he wins this allowance at Gulfstream, and people are back on the son of Tapit and Mai Conquistadori. And there were some decent horses behind him, although I'm getting a little mixed signals with how those horses have come back. The horse that ran second that day in the allowance was Cutting Humor, who really didn't do much at Oaklawn Park in the Southwest. I believe he finished seventh down there. But a horse that finished fourth in this allowance race is in this race. His name is Everfast, and he came back with a really good effort, rallying for second in the Holy Bull. So Bourbon War probably faced some pretty good horses that day. And not one of my favorites yet. Like Global Campaign, he's got to prove he can beat stakes horses. We'll see. But he's eligible to get better and step up here. Matt, I mentioned Everfast, who was kind of a long shot that day. Dale Romans improving. Epic Dreamer, I still can't completely give up on. He ran real fast early in front of Maximus Mischief last time and hung around pretty well, actually, in the Holy Bull. Gladiator King probably had speed. And Frosted Grace and Union's Destiny, while some promise there, they don't look like horses that can actually run huge on Saturday.
Yeah, you rattled off some horses there that just by the fact that that the field has got so many good runners in there, they're going to be big. They're going to be big prices. And you mentioned Epic Dreamer, and I just want to say, he's one that I can't completely throw out yet. I thought his kind of running off almost in the Holy Bull. Setting some really fast fractions with a little bit of a head scratcher. I didn't know if the horse was doing it on his own, because that sure wasn't typical. On that day, Irad Ortiz was riding Epic Dreamer, and that sure wasn't a typical kind of ride from the usually very patient Ortiz. So I'm interested to see if they can harness or control a little bit of that speed from Epic Dreamer in the Fountain of Youth.
Yeah, the Son of Orb you wouldn't figure would be so speed crazy, and this is a good spot not to be speed crazy. So if he can relax a little bit, remember in the start before that in Oklahoma, he had trouble behind horses. So who knows? But he's a talented horse to keep an eye on as a bomb, and I think Everfast will be a bomb again. Despite his good result in the Holy Bull, and Dale Romans' horses at this time of year are certainly eligible to improve and run big as well. So a really interesting field, Matt. I decided by a whisker Vacome was my top pick. Remind us who your top pick is here in the Fountain of Youth.
Brian, and again we've said it before, fans. Brian and I don't talk about our picks before the show, and I've come down to Vacome and Hidden Scroll in here also, with Signalman close behind.
Okay. For me, Global Campaign could be the play if his odds are right as well. All right, Matt. The day before the Fountain of Youth is the one big Kentucky Derby prep of the weekend. But the day before the Kentucky Derby, there's some interesting goings on in allowance races. We'll start in Florida because we're already talking about Gulfstream Park. It's actually the early in the card at Gulfstream on Friday, and it's a 6 furlong allowance race. And we finally get the return of Mucho. When last seen, he was surging late second in the Grade 1 Hopeful. The Son of Blame, also trained by Bill Mott, returns in the short field at a short distance on Friday.
Yeah, putting all that together, it makes it seem like Mott is saying, okay, I know it's late, and I'm gonna put Mucho in here, give him a race as his final tightener, give him a measuring stick of whether Mucho is in fact ready to take a final shot to get into the Kentucky Derby field. Seems like a pretty logical kind of move to make with Mucho at this point. It's almost March. He's first-time Lasix in there also, Brian, which is interesting, and that is carded as race 2.
Yeah, I did notice the first-time Lasix, Matt. I was a little surprised that Mucho's returning in a 6 furlong race. It gives me some cause for pause whether Mott feels like he will be a Derby horse or he has time. 9 weeks and 1 day before the Derby, I guess he could get 2 Derby preps in if he shows the right signs here. There's a few fast horses in there. He's listed at 1-5 on the morning line, but there are a few fast horses. So I'll have to do some running to win this. And maybe he can come back in 3 weeks for a more traditional Kentucky Derby prep. But regardless, I think this is a talented horse that will be heard from further down in his career, whether it's the Kentucky Derby or not. Now, I think the more prevalent Kentucky Derby prep of the allowance races on Fridays happening out in Santa Anita, and it's a 1 mile allowance race, Matt. But this one is not just one horse top loaded. This time we have 3 kind of favorites in this allowance race, 2 from Bob Baffert, 1 from John Sadler. And I guess the favorite is going to be Roadster, who we heard so much about last year early on at Del Mar.
Yeah, Roadster, I guess, was the very first and original buzz horse for the 2019 Kentucky Derby Trail, when back in the summer, Baffert kind of made some comments saying how much he liked Roadster, keeping in mind that after the Del Mar Futurity, Roadster had a little surgery on his throat to correct a breathing issue, and some horses, when they have that procedure, it makes a world of difference. And we're talking about a horse here that was no slouch beforehand. So Baffert is testing the waters here with Roadster.
Yeah, a $525,000 yearling purchase. It's on a quality road. Big maiden win. Most famous Kentucky Derby trainer we have, Matt, talking really good things in the summer of his 2-year-old season. So it was destined for him to be the buzz horse, probably along with Instagram early last year. And then everybody kind of fell off the bandwagon when he got beaten at Del Mar Futurity. I will say this, that was a Grade 1 race in his second career start. He was third, beaten 2 lengths. And the horse that won the race turned out to be game winner, the undefeated Breeders' Cup and champion. So, you look at paper and there's a lot to like from Roadster. Having said this, he's the one that's been off for a long time. He's never raced outside of Del Mar. So I think this is a test, and he's running into some horses who have more recent form and good recent form. The other Baffert is Desmond, son of Union Rags. He's actually getting blinkers off in this spot, Matt, maybe to show a little less speed. Maybe that means Roadster will lead the way early in this 1 mile affair. We'll see. Both of his races, a maiden special weight romp and then a just miss in the Grade 2 San Vicente, were on tracks with some moisture in it. Now he gets the fast track. Now he gets 2 turns mile. So I'm interested to see what Desmond can do as well.
Yeah, certainly, Brian. The blinkers off is an interesting move, and I guess once again, Baffert's testing the waters with this horse to see if he's going to continue on the Derby Trail or go in another direction.
Yeah, I guess he never saw the Bondi horse Sparkville down the middle of the lane when he got beaten nose, but he stalked a fast pace in that San Vicente, and I thought he ran a very good race in his second race of his life. So certainly a horse to watch out for. And then the third horse, Nola Contesto, has only run in 2 maiden races, the son of Pioneer the Nile for trainer John Sadler, but the first one was a real throwout. He lost the iron early in the race. And then the second race, he didn't win by much, but him and Omaha Beach were well ahead of the rest of the field. Omaha Beach came back with one of the most impressive maiden wins of this crop after this race, and that was at a mile. So Nola Contesto, there's a lot to like here, maybe as the third choice in this allowance race.
Yeah, there certainly is, and that was a really important point to make. In that second maiden win, he didn't win by much, but he beat a very, very highly regarded Omaha Beach, who came back and broke his maiden in impressive fashion in there. And of course, he comes from the same connections as Accelerate, Gronis Racing, John Sadler, and Joel Rosario in the saddle.
Right. And with big names in California coming back soon, Baffert hasn't finalized where everyone's going to run, but we do expect Improbable, Game Winner, and Instagram from the Hollendorfer barn all back soon. So this allowance race kind of turned up as a real, a stakes quality Kentucky Derby prep without the points. But the winner of this race will certainly have won something and will move forward as a real Kentucky Derby horse. So one to watch on Friday. Matt, we've been talking about Kentucky Derby horses here, Mucho and Roadster and all the good Fountain of Youth horses. Let's give a little love to the fillies, because our champion 2-year-old filly from 2018, the striking daughter of Cross Traffic, Jaywalk, returns for her first start of the year. That's the race before the Fountain of Youth, Saturday at Gulfstream Park.
Yeah, and comes back at very short odds on the morning line, and rightfully so. The field turned out to be not as strong as it might have, but I'm excited to see Jaywalk, trained by John Service, a horse I really liked last year, as she gets ready for her big 3-year-old year. And the part owner of Jaywalk, hey, he's my accountant, so I got to root for that horse.
Well, there you go, Matt. An extra shout out to Jaywalk and Matt's accountant. Hey, Jaywalk, after her second place debut at Monmouth Park, she just took apart her competition with a high turn of speed, and then cruising to the wire in all 4 races. I guess it was a Parks Maiden, a Delaware Park Allowance, the Grade 1 for Zed at Belmont Park, and then, of course, the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies at Churchill. She's breaking from the rail, and even though she's been away for a few months here, Matt, it's hard to see her losing this, or at least any form of the Jaywalk we saw late last year losing this. Bunch of decent fillies in there. There's some interesting fillies, but none really look like Grade 1 horses. So it's all about Jaywalk and the Devona Dale, who, Matt, you remember Devona Dale. She was something else, a great 3-year-old filly of many. I guess we're going back about 4 decades for that one, Matt. But this race is named after her, and we look forward to Jaywalk's return in the Devona Dale on Saturday. Hey, Matt, we have some bad news to talk about, of course, here on Horse Center. We lost, I think, a horse that was poised to be one of the best horses in America. The news came in, I believe, the first I saw it was from Jeremy Bellin of the Blood Horse, that Battle of Midway shattered his pastern in a workout on Saturday, and of course the injury was too severe for them to save him. Owned by Don Alberto, Winstar, trained and partially owned, I believe, by Jerry Hollendorfer. This was a sad story and part of a bigger sad story coming out of Santa Anita Park of late.
Yeah, they had a little bit of a rash of horses getting injured in morning workouts, and they have the last few days been working on the surface, stripping off the top and taking a look at the base. And I think I heard that they figured out that with the heavy rains that they had for a bunch of days a couple weeks ago at Santa Anita, that all that water may have affected the base, so they'll get that fixed up. But yeah, Battle of Midway was on his way to a big year, and it, it was an interesting story with his victory in the 2017 Dirt Mile that was so impressive, and then he went off to stud the following year and didn't turn out to be a big success. And returned to the races where we talked about how well he was doing, but now we look back at his stud career, and he did get 5 mares in foal, and some of those have been born already. So I think there's going to be 5 little foals from Battle of Midway, and maybe one of them will turn out to be a good one and help us remember the great horse.
Yeah, Battle of Midway. He wasn't one of the greats that we've seen in the last 20 years, but a really nice looking horse, a well-bred horse on a smart strike, and a Grade 1 winning mare named Rigoletto. 5 years old last year. 4, Matt mentioned, proved to be what they called subfertile. He got a very low percentage of the mares he covered pregnant. So they decided to bring him back to race, and I was one of many that was happy to see him back on the track, and now, of course, I regret that, but it's one of those things. hopefully Santa Anita can be righted and made a safer track to run on. It's just heartbreaking to see what's happened there recently, and heartbreaking to see Battle of Midway lost. Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile winner, as you said, Matt. He was third in the Kentucky Derby that same year as a 3-year-old, and I thought his win last time in the San Pasquale was a wonderful win. And sorry, that's going to be his last race of his life. Matt, we should thank our sponsor, the best contest site out there, Derby Wars. I want to thank you, the viewer, every week for watching. We appreciate it. If you haven't hit that subscribe button yet here on Horse Racing Nation, please do so. Matt, can I get a parting shot from you?
Yeah, Brian, I'm excited about this weekend down on the Derby Trail. I find it really interesting. All of these horses that we mentioned are having their coming out party. To me, a little bit on the late side. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens after those allowance races we mentioned, after the Fountain of Youth, when the dust starts settling.
That's right. The Kentucky Derby Trail really is going to heat up. A lot of horses, as Matt mentioned, are kind of trying to do what American Pharoah did a few years ago and just get a couple starts in before the Triple Crown Trail starts. We'll see if that works for them. American Pharoah, of course, was a very special horse. Thank you, Matt. And let's also thank our great producer, Brett Workman, for putting together the show every week. Folks, we will be hitting that Kentucky Derby Trail every week from now on. But as we trail off, one more look back at Battle of Midway, and it happens to be his last race, a really strong win over McKinzie in the San Pasquale.
And they're off. Very sweet beginning. McKinzie was out alertly. Dalmore and Pavel going for the lead. Now Giant Expectations is hustled into contention, and Battle of Midway is actually last in the opening furlong, where Giant Expectations comes alongside of Dalmore. McKinzie is kept in the clear, 3 wide in third. Battle of Midway on the extreme outside. Pavel is at the rail. It's a compact group. 2.5 lengths covers them. Giant Expectations on the outside. Dalmore, they are matching strides, racing together as one. 2 more to McKinzie in third. Battle of Midway inches up outside of McKinzie, and Pavel is on the inside of this pair. It's Giant Expectations with 5/8 of a mile to go in the San Pasquale Stakes. McKinzie takes second. Dalmore losing ground steadily. Battle of Midway just went by him. The gray Pavel has 2.5 to make up with a half-mile to run. And it's Giant Expectations by a neck. McKinzie and Battle of Midway racing right together. Pavel takes fourth. Dalmore is now the trailer. 3/8 to run. Giant Expectations has been prominent every step of the way. McKinzie, an imposing presence up alongside now, and Battle of Midway is outside of him. 3 of them across the track with a 1/4 of a mile to go. Pavel has 5 to make up. McKinzie, Battle of Midway running a huge race on the outside, and Giant Expectations is hanging tough. They're 1/8 of a mile from home, and it's McKinzie and Battle of Midway. Battle of Midway or McKinzie. McKinzie just in front. Battle of Midway's pressing hard on the outside. McKinzie or Battle of Midway. It could go either way. Battle of Midway. Battle of Midway beats McKinzie in the San Pasquale. Giant Expectations third. Pavel was fourth. In the winner's circle is number 8, Battle of Midway, a 5-year-old bay horse by Smart Strike out of Rigoletta, owned by Don Alberto Stable or Windstar Farm. The winning trainer is Jerry Hollendorfer, and the jockey, Flavien Prat. That's a riding double today for Flavien Prat. Battle of Midway was bred in Kentucky by Thorbred Stables, LLC. In the winner's circle to make the presentation to the connections of Battle of Midway, winner of the Grade 2 San Pasquale Stakes, Santa Anita welcomes Ray Pollock.
Thank you, Frank. old-fashioned throwdown here in the San Pasqual Battle of Midway with a gutsy performance, winning rider Flavien Prat. Flavien, congratulations. You seemed a little farther back than normal to start. Was that by design?
Well, I thought the other day we were up on the lead and we have been pressed the whole way, and I didn't feel like it was really comfortable doing that. So with the outside road today, I thought it might be better to stay outside.
All right, congratulations with the race.
Thank you.
All right, let's talk to Jerry Hollendorfer. Jerry, obviously a huge performance very early in the year for these older horses. You have to be happy with what you saw today.
Very nice and good ride by Pratt, and I thought we had our horse ready, and Bob's horse was very game too, so it's a good race.
Were you surprised to see? I know we saw Giant Expectations got up there really early. Hadn't seen that in a while. Did that kind of affect how you were approaching the race?
You know, we were kind of undecided what the speed was going to be. You know, I thought Bob would send his horse harder, but he didn't do that, so that kept us wide into the first turn, which that was a good strategy for them.
Jerry, really appreciate the time. Congratulations and continued success.
All right, thank you.
All right.